Calvin Johnson. I love Calvin Johnson.
My favorite player of all time. Love him.
I unfortunately only got to catch the tail end years of Barry Sanders. Obviously, watching highlights, he was incredible. But I can't say as an adult or as even a teenager that I was able to experience Barry Sanders. I'd be lying to you. I lived it through my dad. I lived it through YouTube, obviously, as a young kid. That's how I lived through Barry Sanders. I lived arguably the third greatest wide receiver in NFL history. And I got almost 10 years of it. A decade, almost a decade, of some of the most unreal, exceptional, dominant performances, whether it was Dallas, whether it was Atlanta, whether it was Cincinnati. You name the moments, Calvin Johnson was there. Even the playoff game that he played in, New Orleans, went over 200 yards. Made sure he stepped up that game. So, where I'm going with this is he says his relationship is trending up. And to be honest with you, I do think the Lions should make amends. That is where I stand. Having said that, are we making a bigger deal of this than what it is? Because to me, how do I say this politely? I actually don't care if Sheila Hamp and the Lions organization, quote, embrace Calvin. I think it's really good for the team. I think it's good for the city. I think you want to treat your legends better than anybody. I think you want to follow how the Chiefs do it. The Chiefs do it the best in the business. Taking care of their legends, making them feel great, doing events with them, all that stuff. And I'm not expecting Calvin Johnson to be running down Ford Field on the sideline with a Lions flag. Oh my God! Trying to get hype. No. But I do think he did enough to earn some respect and figure out how to compensate him properly.
Yeah.
I do think that's a given, but is that going to change their fortune? No. Does that mean Brad Holmes drafts better because they made up with Calvin? No. Does it mean Dan Campbell coaches better because they made up with Calvin? No. Does it mean the players are training better in the offseason and they're going to perform at a higher level next season? No. Because they pay Calvin? No. Want to pay him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring him. Wrap my arm around him. But it has like zero impact on the team. And I think we get caught up sometimes. And if we got to break the curse. There's no curse. There's no ghosts. There's none of that. There is no curse on Detroit.
I think the bigger thing about it, and you're right, it might not affect the team, but the narrative of the Detroit Lions and doing their legends dirty. Now you got Barry back. Calvin's kind of halfway in, halfway out. He's doing a lot of other things. He still comes around a little bit. But just to amend this relationship, get him whatever he needs or earned, and kind of make up that relationship, I think it's super important. I mean, you look at the playoff games, not just last weekend. You watch Jerry Rice, cheering on the 49ers, talking trash to Eagles fans, showing his rings. Like, I can see Calvin Johnson coming to a Lions playoff game and showing support. Barry Sanders. Like, that matters. You talk about taking care of your legends. You mentioned Kansas City. San Francisco does a great job at it. The Philadelphia Eagles do a good job at it. You see a lot of former players show up to their games as well. So I think it's important, but not just, because, again, I love Calvin. I'm a little biased here. Get him his money. But the bigger thing is we're getting away from this SOL narrative. A lot of things have changed. That what Brad Holmes is doing, Dan Campbell, how the coaching staff, guys being interested, opposing teams being interested in the coaching staff. Just things are different in Detroit, specifically for the Lions. This would be another aspect of that. If you could take care of Calvin and get him to start coming around more often. I don't know how that entails. I don't think you can just cut him a check. I think there has to be some sort of way to give him the money. I'm not sure on the specifics of it. But just the fact that he said it, they're trending up, I think is a great sign. But they really got to, fix this eventually. Because it's like the last nail, and it's really the last thing that you really have to do. I mean,
I think we'd agree and say you have to take care of your legends.
Absolutely. Especially the greatest wide receiver to ever wear a Detroit Lions uniform. That's important.
You could argue the greatest player in franchise history.
Yeah,
I know Barry is is untouchable. But Calvin was what Barry was during his time. Short career, the most dominant during that stretch.
Right.
Nobody was more dominant than Calvin Johnson during that period. You could argue the 1 year Randy Moss, I'll give you that. Maybe Randy, not even Randy, to be honest with you. Who was it? Julio Jones? Nobody was Calvin, man. It was Calvin freaking Johnson. Now, Andre Johnson from Houston was really good.
Right.
God, some of the receivers back then are missing me at the moment. But beyond the point, you got to take care of your players.
He spent his entire career playing for the Lions. Like Julio Jones, he should get taken care of by Atlanta eventually and always be welcome back to Atlanta, which he will be. But he played for other teams. Like Calvin is only a Lion. He still lives here. He's still in the area.
His businesses are here.
Like there's a lot of ties. I think having Calvin just a part of the organization moving forward is just great. I know he's spoken to wide receivers. I don't know if it was Amon-Ra or whoever, but just to get him around these guys, it's super beneficial. The question I have, though, and this is what we talked about. I wasn't sure if I talked with Maz about this because I filled in for a show about a year ago, and how do you do it is the question. I don't know how this works if you give him money.
He has to work for it, essentially.
That's the question.
Contractually, he would have to work for it. Look, there are gestures you make in life that go a long way. For example, if you're a young man and you're going on a first date, you're probably picking up the check, right? No, you don't have to say it. It's kind of like a predetermined agreement, like, hey, this is what's going to happen, right?
Right.
Cool. Other examples in life. For example, you're in your late teens, early 20s. You're looking to go swing around with some women or men. I don't know, whatever you prefer.
All right.
And the point is, when you're going out to certain scenes and putting yourself in certain environments, you expect certain things to happen. Fair?
Fair.
When you give your body and are arguably the greatest wide receiver in the NFL for a decade, you expect to be treated a certain way. It's kind of like a bros code. It's more so an unwritten rule. Maybe that's a better word for it. It's an unwritten rule of, hey, you take care of me, I take care of you. Mm-hmm. We don't agree to it. It's nothing contractual. But hey, I come to you and I say, I gave this franchise everything. You don't want to trade me. I'm going to retire. My body's breaking down. I'm going to go. And instead of the Lions at the time, I'm not going to hold the current team available, but at the time, they said, you know what, Calvin? Thank you so much for your service. We're going to need that signing bonus back. Instead of, hey, Calvin, we love you. Whatever is best for you and your family, we're going to support. Wish you the best of luck. You're welcome back anytime, and we'd love to figure out something in the future with you where we can have you around more because we love you that much. We appreciate everything you did here. That's all it had to be. And instead, we're fighting over $1 million, and now trying to figure out, how do we bring him back?
Yeah, that's...
It's so stupid in hindsight. That's the problem. There are just some things in life you just shut up and take the hit for.
And this is what I'm glad Sheila and Sheila's been getting a lot of love over the last 6 months from everybody in Detroit. I think she's done a great job, but this is part of it as well. If your job is to change the narrative or the perspective of your franchise, this is part of it here. Amending that relationship with Kelvin. I mean, you watch any national show, if they bring up the Lions and Kelvin, the conversation always gets brought up. What are they going to do with Kelvin? Did they pay Kelvin? Give Kelvin his money? And a lot of people don't understand the context of that or how that works. You can't just cut Kelvin a check. At least I don't think so. But like you said, one of the greatest, if not the greatest player to ever play in a Lions uniform. We'll just say the greatest wide receiver. Barry's obviously the greatest running back, arguably, of all time. But still, your greatest wide receiver to ever grace a Lions uniform. I mean, the guy put his body on the line. He still has complications from it even to this day. Still lives in Detroit, in Michigan specifically. So you got to take care of him. And just imagine a playoff game. The Lions hosting at Ford Field, Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson. These guys are in attendance. You know how significant that is? It's like this is what those respectable franchises do with some of their better players. They have him at the games. Jerry Rice, Randall Cunningham, any of these guys for their respective teams. I want Calvin to be the same way. So I have faith Sheila will get this taken care of. But the fact that Calvin came out and told, I believe it was the Post about this, the New York Post, about how it's trending up. It's after nearly 8 years of dealing with this, I think it's great news. And it's really all you can ask for. Here's the start. Now, how do you get the money? I don't know. We're going to have to figure that one out.